What's going on, guys? Kyle and Logan here, Blacklisted Voice episode 39, and we're going to talk about PEDs today, especially with all the recent hops that happened on the team side of things.
Yeah, PEDs, for those of y'all that don't know what PEDs is.
Performance drugs, for those that don't know what PEDs are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a lot of teams that popped. Man-made actually just competed at the games. I guess we're releasing this after the game, so they just competed at the games, got their spot because a team at the West Coast popped. There were two teams at Granite Games, and then one individual popped previously in a weightlifting competition. Didn't realize that they could not compete in CrossFit if they had popped at another competition, and then was disqualified. Or their team was disqualified after CrossFit found out. So there were, I don't know if you count that. I don't know if you count that one or not, but if you count that one, 4 out of the 15, because we're assuming that Atlas Games didn't get tested.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
I chatted with someone that did it, and they, okay. I mean, so
yeah, it would have been a logistic nightmare for CrossFit.
Yeah, seriously. And it's funny because like I had like posted something like, oh, I thought it was, do you think it's strange that they're not drug tested for Atlas Games? And this was like before everything had came out, and everyone was like, oh, we don't need to do that. Teams aren't taking anything. I guess I'm just crazy then.
Could you imagine being the person that was like hard taking something and they knew that there was online qualifiers?
Yeah.
Put Atlas Games as number 1 and then went to a live competition.
This did not pan out like I thought it would.
Like, well, fuck, now I have to finish in last place.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But we'll never know if that actually happened or not.
Yeah, we'll never know.
So yeah, we'll kick it off with kind of a general discussion. I think there's a lot to unpack on this subject, especially in performance sports. So yeah, you wanna kick off the discussion, Logan, or?
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just it's a super interesting topic. It's a lot of for some reason this topic just gets a ton of traction. Like people like I mean myself included, people like love to talk about PEDs, and I think a lot of times seldomly do people actually know what they are, like specifically prevalence of them, and I think just how easy they would be to get, and like for a lot of supplements, how easy not necessarily illegal performance enhancing drugs will land themselves in your supplements, but just ones that will get you popped. So like there's several things. Like I even looked up stuff.
Sorry, before we continue, when you say illegal, that's like FDA approved for use in the body versus something that USADA is allowing to be used as a supplement. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like illegal as in you either have to have a prescription drug, you have to have a prescription for the drug, or it's like flat out illegal. Like it came from Mexico and you're not allowed to have possession of it unless you're like a vet or something. Like a lot of steroids are like that. So there is a difference between that and then just something that like WADA would test for, or USADA. For those of y'all that don't know the difference, WADA is the testing agency that tests the samples. And then USADA is a third-party organization that Olympics, UFC, pretty sure the NFL uses, that kind of deal with everything. So like they deal with the samples. They're the ones that actually will like enforce like sanctions, and they're the ones that will actually, I guess, break the news. And CrossFit is not like that. CrossFit does not use USADA. So basically the how it would work
it's
with
it's like USADA guidelines though, right? Like it's USADA's guidelines.
No, it's not WADA. It's so everything that is like illegal in CrossFit is according to WADA, and everything that is illegal to USADA is according to WADA. Everything is WADA. Everything like on their banned list is the exact same thing. And then USADA is just the one that like handles it. Like WADA isn't going to be the organization that's gonna, oh, so and so popped for this and this. It's not WADA that's releasing that information. With CrossFit, it's CrossFit. With another sport, it's USADA.
Got it. Yeah.
Which kind of it kind of makes it to where you have people that are just, they've dealt with drug testing a little bit more. They understand a little bit more. They have more experience. It's their profession. I don't really know how it works within HQ. Like, I'm assuming that the person or few people that are in charge of the drug testing, that's not their only role in HQ. I don't know that for sure. So don't.
We had, when we got tested in 2014, it was some third party that tested us. Like, it wasn't headquarters, but
okay. It may have been WADA. It may have been like, I'm not for sure on the logistics of like, I would assume that it's not HQ that is making you
right.
Getting your sample. But anyways, so those are kind of like, this is all stuff that I personally didn't know. I didn't know like how USADA was connected to WADA. And actually they've answered a few of my questions that I've had. And USADA actually has a lot of resources out there that are
thorough.
Yeah, that are super, super nice. Like, one thing that I liked the most was USADA on their website. They actually have a list, like a high risk list, and it literally has every single supplement out there that is ever that they've ever found something that is illegal according to WADA, or illegal in general. So you could even get it's the exact supplement, brand, everything, and it'll tell you what it entails, why. Most of them are just, it has an ingredient in it. It just has a banned ingredient. It's not illegal, but it's illegal if you're an athlete. So all of those are great resources. Like, I even had there was a pre-workout that I had taken at one point that was on there. It had the ingredient in it in 2017. It had since been removed from the formula. But like, I stopped taking it just in case, in case they just, took it out just to say they took it out, So they have some really great tools. And they also are super responsive on like email. A couple times I emailed them asking about stuff. I even emailed them asking about, other athletes that I have competing that may be drug tested. They wanted me to reach out. So I reached out to them just about certain logistics, and they were very thorough. And most of the time they would send you, articles or, kind of press releases when it was illegal, or, stuff like that. And they also tell you when it's going to be illegal, if there's going to be a change. So like, for instance, those of y'all that don't know, cortisone shot, is illegal right now. And the only way it is legal is if you inject it into a joint. Starting in 2022, it will be illegal, period. So that's something that I didn't know. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
But I had read
a lot of people by surprise.
Yes. And I had read through the WADA. I've read through the WADA prohibited, drug list lots and lots of times. So I pretty much know anything and everything that could possibly pop up, and I remember seeing it. So yeah, those are all really great tools. And I think it's just something that if you're going to get drug tested, that you do need to stay up to date on. And I do think that it is, if you have a coach, it is also their responsibility I'm not saying that like if you pop, then it's the coach's fault. But I do think as part of like a coaching role is to educate. So I think you need to educate. Like I told my athletes like about the cortisone shot rule and everything like that. And I already had the knowledge, and I already and I have a vast knowledge on even brands that are have been known to have stuff in them that are banned. Like off the top of my head, like Geospari. If you're taking Geospari subs, that stop taking it now. It's literally like almost like every single one of everything that they like, every like outlet that they have a supplement in, and it has something illegal in it. So like if you're taking it, you should probably stop.
Or start, whichever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, that was super interesting. And I just didn't know that there were that many supplements out there that contained something that was banned.
When you say contained something that was banned, this is completely different than what a lot of people are saying.
Yes.
Supplements.
Yes. Contaminated is like I got vitamin C supplements and there was ostarine in it. That's contaminated. Not I got a pre-workout that had 1,3-dimethylene in it and I got popped for 1,3-dimethylene. Well, it had it on the label, so it's not contaminated. You just took something that was banned and didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a confusion there. But yeah, I think all those resources are super, super helpful in being able to just kind of like take ownership of what goes into your body and not chancing it and just having education. Like for me, like I've put years and years and years into this, I don't want to chance it by having something in my supplement that, may pop me. Like a lot of people don't even know. Like a lot of people don't even know that 1,3-dimethylene is something that could be in a pre-workout that a lot of people haven't taken out. If anyone ever remembers the pre-workout Jacked, it was like back in early 2000s. It had it in it. It was. I mean, I took it. I mean, not gonna lie. No one knew what that was. But since then, the FDA made it. They sent out warning letters to all the supplement companies that had it in it and said that you can't market this as a dietary supplement. So now a lot of it's so just dumb, but like a lot of pre-workouts will have it in it, and then on the bottle it says not for human consumption. So that's how they get around it. If it's not for humans, it's got to be for me.
Oh, I'm an animal.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think a lot of that is just super like just comes from like education. And that's not even like, we're not even starting to talk about actual education of like actual PEDs. That's just stuff that could be found in your supplements you already take.
Yeah, that's like the first thing you want to educate yourself on is like, what word association do I need to associate with things on the bottle that will kick me out of my sport for an extended period of time.
Right. And there's
to do that matchup.
Yes. And it is tricky, and it's very tricky because there's also other names for the same freaking compound. Like 1,3-dimethylene has other names that could be on the back of it. Like it's so they know what they're doing.
Like change one little molecule on it, and then you get to name it a different name, but it doesn't have the same thing.
Yes, exactly. But in all fairness, it's like you don't really see that many people getting popped for things like that. Most of the time, like I think maybe in 2018, I remember seeing a girl get popped for 1,3-dimethylene in a pre-workout. I remember seeing that and I'm like, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I think you sent that one to me.
So that sucks.
How, because like you've told me about this before, there's a certain brand that's tested, all of the product is tested before it's sent out to the shelves. What is that exactly?
So it's NSF certified, and they have a website, and they even have an app that you can like type in like your whatever you're taking and see if it's NSF certified. You know, a lot of the bigger companies have NSF certified supplements like Cellucor. I mean, if you want NSF certified supplements, they have pretty much everything at Walmart. I mean, crazy as it sounds, but they have an NSF certified Cellucor protein, pre-workout, and BCAAs. And they even have a pre-workout that's like a, you know, fat burner. So, so those are all super safe. But it also doesn't mean that, like, if it's not NSF certified, that it contains something illegal. It's just they haven't paid that money to have it illegal. And also, I think that there's also a, like, if you stay within like big brands, it's a pretty safe bet that you're getting a good product.
Yeah,
like all the brands that I looked up, like the only big one that I had heard of was Geospari and maybe Redcon. But like those were few. The Redcon was few and far between. The Geospari was prevalent, but not a lot of people take their subs. At least people that I know. But like, I mean, Cellucor, you know, GNC brands, stuff like that. Like that stuff is pretty safe. So I would say, you know, the bigger and more prominent the company, like it's not a 100%, but it's definitely more of a, you know, more of a chance to take, or less of a chance to take compared to some backdoor company. I mean, some of these pre-workout names, like sometimes you can just go by the name. Like there was one that I looked up. It was like called like Leatherface, and it had Leatherface from like the Chainsaw Massacre on the front, and it had like it had a 1,3-dimethylamine in it. It had 500 milligrams of caffeine. It had like 5 grams of beta alanine. I was like, oh my gosh.
Literally, your face feels like leather.
Yeah. And then like other pre-workouts like Psychotic, and like that's a name. That's the name of it. Like that just sounds, you know, sketchy.
Like,
so
yeah.
So like if you're taking stuff like that, I mean,
I would imagine that some of these bigger companies are not looking for the risk of getting lawsuits against them or whatever. You know.
Yes. So what about you? What are some of your initial thoughts on this topic?
I mean, man, I've been out of the supplement game for so long that I hardly even recommend anything to anyone anymore. The most what I recommend is just like vitamins, literally. So like, you know, I think the NSF is like the route to go. You know, with how many pops happened at the competitions this year, like if you're part of an organization, it's getting to the point where, and this is something that we're going to do like this year, is we're going to sit down and we're going to have like a huge education like factor or like meeting at the beginning of the year. Like, hey, like, look, the thresholds or whatever they're able to test for now is significantly improved. So like these are supplements that are safe. Like they haven't had any cross contamination, whatever. Like sitting your athletes down at the beginning of the year and going over that stuff and sending it out in a broad, you know, if you're remote, like sending it out in a broad, sort of like information based platform is going to help, I think, athletes who are looking to compete at the higher levels.
For sure.
What I thought was interesting was like none of the individuals were popped this year. So you had
30, we did chat about that.
Yeah, you had 30 individuals that were tested, along with 30 team athletes that were tested, and like 16% of the team athletes had popped or previously popped. Which would equate to 3 or 4 individuals getting popped, and they didn't. So I don't know what exactly that means. Like, is it just more prevalent on the team side of things because it's not as serious of a lifestyle? Do individuals have more resources than the team athletes? You know, I think there's a lot of like kind of factors that go into that. When I say resources, like resources to pass a drug test or something like that. Are they clean? You know, I think that's another question. But I mean, we've kind of started to see some of the like higher level individuals starting to get, I mean, with Ricky Garrard, I think that was pretty eye opening for people. Like there are individuals taking at the games level. So
Yes.
Was he was one of the bigger pops, right?
Yeah, I think he was the biggest pop
Yeah.
ever.
There have been a couple more. I think there was a top 10 from a couple years ago that got popped for a SARM.
Yes, I don't know what her Anna. She was from Greece.
Also, there's that girl.
Yeah.
There's I remember there's some guy from Russia that basically was like, yeah, got popped.
Yeah, it is what it is.
The state sponsored doping didn't come through for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I think there's some other girl that got popped at the game. So, but I mean, what I was looking into was a lot of kind of like some of the threshold stuff and what the difference in thresholds for certain drugs are. So I thought that was pretty interesting, is you can actually have the drug in your system, but there's certain thresholds that they're looking for that drug. So because there's a runner that just popped for something, I can't remember what it was. And she was like the favored to win or help the US win, I think, the marathon or something like that in the Olympics that are going on. And she popped for something, claims that she didn't take it, but had eaten pork previously. And pork can actually lead to you testing there's a study that's been done that shows that you eating pork can lead to you testing positive for this drug, just like how poppy seed can lead you to testing positive for opioids of some sort. I can't remember what it was exactly. So there are foods that you can end up eating that will have you test positive for some of these things. I don't know the exact science behind it, but essentially that's the reason for the thresholds, is there are naturally occurring things that will cause you to have the drug in your system. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you took it, but it appears that on the international level, the thresholds for some of these things are significantly less than what the US tests for. So the US is one of the stricter thresholds in the world. So we'll traditionally have higher levels of popping on drug tests because our thresholds are a little bit lower than the rest of the world's.
And
I did a good job explaining that.
Yeah. And that's very interesting, because if you ask anyone that's like super into weightlifting, that they'll tell you the reason that we're so behind is because we're stricter with drug testing. And I thought it was super interesting, because it's almost like it's a messed up thing that having stricter standards is a disadvantage. It's pretty
performance-based sports specifically.
So
like if you can actually go back and look at, so USADA has a list of like all athletes, not all their names, but like athletes that popped and the numbers that correspond with whatever sport. And so if you go back and you look at 2016, pretty much all performance sports are like off the charts relative to something like football, like football, basketball, some of these other sports that involve more skill, where like you don't necessarily have to take drugs to be really good at them or elicit competitive performance. They were significantly higher in performance-based sports. So you're thinking triathlons, track and field, marathon racing, stuff like that. The amount of individuals getting caught was significantly greater than something like a skill sport.
So for example, in the Olympics, these stats are from 2008. Since 2018, the positive doping results since the Olympic, like in Olympic history, once they've had these drug testing standards, is the number one sport is track and field. It's 166 positives. And number two is weightlifting at 106. So we have track and field 166, weightlifting 106, and then third is wrestling at 18.
Yeah.
18. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of other, there's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more that are in like double digits. And then all the rest are single.
Yeah.
But we have 166 and 106.
Yeah.
And this is just like another stat.
Those are straight up sports that literally measure your performance.
Physiology. Yeah. Your performance. Yep.
There was a podcast that I listened to, Max Aida, and they had a guy. So I'm also wondering if those numbers are starting to get more inflated because they have been going back and taking blood samples of previous athletes and like basically of their medals. Like Ilya Ilyin had won whatever weight class he was in at the time. They went back and drew a B sample of his blood, tested it. He tested positive for whatever, and they actually like retracted his medal. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're right.
So I think those numbers are probably starting to drive up because they have some of these B samples. But it's like you're finding this well past them standing on the podium, them getting all the accolades for doing this, them, your career out of it.
Yes, exactly. Like he already made money off getting the gold.
Right.
So was it worth it? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. But what this Olympic weightlifter was saying was he had served a suspension after I think he had been like third place or something like that on a world stage or something. And what he was saying was like, look, you can have 1, 2, and 3 standing on the podium clean, but they were not clean to get to that point. Right. And he basically said it's almost impossible to compete on a world stage without having done something at some point in your career.
That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty wild.
That's crazy.
But then he went on to also say that if you're part of the USA, your mindset can't be that all these other individuals are getting away taking drugs, so I'm never going to be competitive. Which, like, to his point, yes, that is the case. But you're also more than likely never going to be competitive until they're not taking drugs anymore. If you're in the US.
Right, for sure, sure. So, and I think that kind of puts, like it's easy for people to think that, I take PEDs, and that's the thing that like got you to where you are. And like you're starting to see in a lot of sports that they've done literally, everything humanly possible to get to the point where they're at, and then they take something that's going to give them a little bit of a push. So it's like, it's not like some people are like, PEDs are your shortcut, where it's not a shortcut. To get to where some of these athletes get on PEDs, you would not be able to get there naturally. And I don't think that is saying it's a shortcut. Like if I loaded up on all these drugs, I could not get there naturally. So it's not necessarily a shortcut. It would be a shortcut if I could have gotten there naturally with hard work and, whatever.
Right.
But it's just a boost. So that's like, and that's my kind of view of most athletes when, I hear about them taking PEDs. Like I'm never one, I'm not going to sit there and say, I think you're a bad person because you took PEDs. I understand the competitor's mindset. I understand that, you're going to do whatever it takes to win. Doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
But I know that temptation is always there, and I'm not going to, blast you for it. But I think when it kind of, starts coming into play, when you make certain allegations and stuff like that, whether they're true or not, that's when I typically have a problem. Like if someone were to come out and say, I took it because I was trying to do the very best that I could, I got caught up, dude, I would respect that because you're owning it. Because I do understand that. But but yeah, it's a
the individual after they get caught that's like the one of the individuals that was just recently caught was like, yeah, I was fucking taking shit. It's awesome. It's like that. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
you're right. It
yeah,
is awesome.
yeah. Thank you.
So like,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean, yeah, like you get, I mean, to put how in like how much of a performance boost you can get from these things. There was a 30 for 30 on Lance Armstrong, and in it he had I think it was in 96. He said he started taking all this shit. Like so prior to 96, he was very competitive. Or he was on the rise to be competitive. I think it was in like 94 or something like that.
Yeah.
95 rolls around, he is like non-existent as a athlete. It's like, what in the world is happening? Like I was on trajectory to be really freaking good at this sport, and I just disappeared.
Right.
So he finds out basically everyone's taking drugs. So he starts taking drugs. That's when he gets diagnosed with cancer. He was taking growth hormone, more than likely. This is not proven, but more than likely the growth hormone was the driver for a lot of his cancer. As soon as he came off of it, the tumors started to recede. So he spent a year recovering. I think he went back in like 97 or 98 and started racing again. And didn't even make a qualifying time for like worlds or something like that. He's like, so I assumed again that people were taking stuff, and somebody led me to this doctor in Eastern Europe, and this guy started giving me EPO. And like it was literally a 10% increase in performance. I went from not qualifying for Tour de France to winning Tour de France. And like and not just winning, but dominating Tour de France. So like
that's nuts.
Yeah. So like I'm probably getting the numbers a little bit wrong there,
right?
But yeah, like you went back.
Yeah.
I can watch that 30 for 30. It's like a great representation of individuals. And like there's guys who like in racing specifically, like let's say they were bike racing, 50 years ago before all this shit, they would have had legitimate careers in racing and could have living off of it. Instead, they don't want to take drugs. They refuse to take drugs.
Right.
And now they don't have a career in racing because it's just not a even playing field for them.
Right.
So I think that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
Yes.
But,
yeah, and I think that's it's super tough because it's like, and that's where I think if because there's an argument of like, oh, just make everything legal and then it's fine. Well, you wouldn't want to associate sports with putting a negative hamper on your health. Now, I know that we've kind of made the kind of the statement that like CrossFit's not the healthiest thing for you. Well, it's whenever you're pushing your body to certain limits, there's probably going to be a little bit of negative, but it's not taking PEDs for like 10 years. You don't want that. Like if you take out drug testing and you were to say, all right, you can take whatever you want, you're gonna have the same thing that happened in bodybuilding where you're getting these people that die when they're in 50s. And it would suck to have that because not all PEDs will make you die at 50 years old, but it's really PED abuse that will harm you. And people, I mean, these are powerful drugs, and people just stick the needle in, and well, I hope that the dude that sold me this was right. And
there's not meth in here also.
right and this is actually one thing, those of y'all that don't know, like the whole steroid thing in baseball, Jose Canseco wrote a book called Juiced, and just been reading it, and he just kind of talks about kind of all the benefits of like for those of y'all that don't know, they did not start testing for PEDs in baseball till 2001. So like when all of this PED use in baseball was going on, like they didn't test for it. So like, what did you expect? So anyways, he was the one that brought it to baseball. And in that book, he kind of names a lot of really big players, including like Barry Bonds and Mark McGuire. But anyways, he goes on to say, whenever I started taking PEDs and dabbling, I knew everything there was, and I still do. He said, he made the statement in the book that there's probably not someone out there that knows more than I know about steroid use. And he said, they're great. He said, I think that if we could figure out how to dose properly, like as in everyone knew, or there were like doctors you could go to that knew the stuff that he knew, he said it could, add 20 years of quality to your life. As in right. He made the statement where I'm 43 years old, but I feel like 25.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely like an argument of like it's steroid abuse that can get you in trouble, but like at the end of the day, like once you start messing with your hormones and stuff like that, like it's so messy.
Yeah, like if they were to start doing away with, or just being like, hey, it's legal, like you can do whatever you want, I almost think it becomes more of a who has the money to pay the best doctor to get the best stuff, and what does that stuff do to your physiology. And like, now we're starting to see, like he talks about being younger, so like maybe it's beneficial in regards to that. And I think there are things that you can definitely take as like quote unquote anti-agers, right? But like, does it get to a point where it starts becoming, we want to speed the processes up instead of like repair, right?
Yes, do it the right way.
Yeah, and get to the point where now you're having people in a drug race to 28 because they're going to freaking die at 28.
Yes.
Knowing an athlete and a competitor's mindset, that does not matter to them. Literally winning matters. So now you're starting to get into like a moral ground of like, if we do allow everything, is it going to get to the point where people are trying to speed the process up? And now all of a sudden you're seeing like hardcore, like what are the health repercussions of that? Does that get to the point where people are dropping dead at age, instead of 50, now it's 30? And like, what are so like, what are the moral repercussions of allowing everybody to take drugs,
Right. And speaking to just like how it'd get out of control, there's I believe it's called the Goldman's Dilemma. It was a study done, I can't remember which year, but it was a while ago. And just if you're listening, if you look this up, they have done this again. And I guess it was a smaller sample size. But they have done this again, and the numbers were a lot lower. But for the sake of the point, at one point it was this. But anyways, they asked a group of Olympic athletes if you were given the option to take a drug that would not get you in trouble and would allow you to win a gold medal, would you take it? 95% said yes. And then they asked a question, same scenario. We have a drug for you. You're not going to get caught. You're going to get a gold medal and you will die in 5 years. And around 50% said yes, I'll take it. So that's what you're doing. Now, again, I said they've done this questionnaire again, and the numbers were a lot lower. But at one point when they did it, it was that. And I think
it's probably a floating scale, though.
Yes, I think it depends on who you're asking.
Yeah. Like year to year, that number will probably vary a lot.
Right.
But like athletes do not care about their health and do not care about, they care about like it's when you get into like a competitive mind state, the only thing that matters to you is how you finish and like make you win. And it's like, that probably sounds crazy to like some people, but like if you like, I guarantee that if you were to ask that question to Michael Jordan 100 times out of 100 times, if you were given the option to win an NBA championship and then die in the following year, he would take win
for sure. For sure.
Maybe like obviously knowing like the past, but if it was like, hey, you could win again in 98, and then be done, or like, but then you would be dead in like 2000, like, what do you want to do? He would win in 98.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. Oh, for sure.
like, I guess I can't speak 100% to that, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
that's the mindset of somebody that competes at that level. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of other individuals inside that sports mindset,
Yeah. Yeah. And then like speaking to the same point, like there's a documentary, I think it's on one of the streaming services, but it's called The Price of Gold. And it's all about these Olympic athletes that after their Olympic career fall into deep, deep depression. And one of the guys was actually a bobsledder, committed suicide. No, I'm not saying it was because of competing and, but he had won a gold medal.
You lose your sense of self after. Yeah.
And that's how
that I think a lot of people that are transitioning out of CrossFit specifically, because you don't necessarily make a huge career in CrossFit, like in winning money, are kind of, I think that's kind of like the biggest struggle point, is losing that sense of self as a competitor, is something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah. And I think the kind of a big point that a lot of people make with PED use is like, oh, they're not gonna take PEDs because there's no money in it. Well, in bobsledding, there is no money. And actually in that documentary, The Price of Gold, they talk about how these people are like literally going into debt just to do their sport. And bobsledding is, I'm pretty sure, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the most positive drug tests. So like there's no money in it, but there's still, it's just that competitive mindset. That
if you do get notoriety for being a gold medalist, like,
oh, no doubt.
And there's definitely doors that open from being a gold medalist.
For sure.
Bring it back to like PED use a little bit more. So if I were to guess at what PEDs are used most commonly in CrossFit, we're obviously seeing a bunch of SARMs pop, which is, I wish I could speak on how they interact with the body exactly, but they pretty much, for each SARM, there's a different factor that it contributes to. So for certain SARMs, it'll be you'll gain muscle mass and burn fat. For other SARMs, it'll be you'll gain strength and not put on size or something like that. For others, it'll be you'll gain aerobic power, which is exactly kind of what CrossFit is as a sport. You can kind of think of that in more like layman's, I guess, terminology is like VO2. You'll gain VO2 max pretty much. So it's acting pretty significantly on your physiology. If you think about putting on strength while decreasing body weight, like that's a pretty significant factor. I think we touched on this in the bodybuilding podcast for success in the sport. Like you're now stronger at a lighter body weight, and pound for pound, you're just going to move way faster than other individuals. So I think those are kind of some of the things that people are using for and getting popped for right now. I have a sneaking suspicion that EPO is being used in the sport, but because the only way, as far as I know, the only way you can test for it is via blood draws, and I don't believe that CrossFit does a blood draw. People are not being popped for EPO, and essentially what EPO does is it creates more red blood cells. Oxygen binds to red blood cells, and so now essentially there's more oxygen being delivered to your tissues. Your red blood cell delivers oxygen to your tissues, so now there's more oxygen being delivered to your tissues, essentially creating better endurance profiles, better endurance profiles. So I mean, obviously that's a speculation that's can't be proven. Nobody's popped for it, but if there were a drug to use, it would be something like that for this sport.
The interesting enough, I thought that you couldn't do like a urine test for blood doping,
Oh,
but interesting enough, they actually developed a test for the type of plastic that the blood sits in when it's going into your body. So that plastic will come out in your urine and they can test for
wow.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying the plastic will come out of your urine. That what metabolite of the plastic will come out
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
your urine and they'll be able to test for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, EPO definitely a blood test, which CrossFit doesn't do. And then speaking to the SARMs are selective androgen modulators. Yeah, selective androgen receptor modulators. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, some of them are more geared towards muscle mass, lean muscle mass, getting rid of fat. So like a couple of the popular ones are like ostarine and testosterone, for like putting on strength. And then the one that is very popular is endurobol or cardarine, which is technically not a SARM. It's kind of gets thrown in the group. But it's very interesting how a lot of people, unaware of how kind of like some of those work. For example, like enduroball, how it kind of, I guess, the performance enhancing effect, it basically shifts your body into being able to burn almost all fat when you are working out instead of carbs. So like those of y'all that don't know, you can store endless amounts, not endless, but basically endless amounts of fat. Yeah, I mean, basically endless. There's people that are 600 pounds. So basically endless. And you're able to use that as energy. So it's immediate boost in performance because you're never gonna technically never deplete your carbohydrate stores, because you're allowed to do that. And it makes it to where you will melt off fat. So not only does it increase endurance, but it also increases, body fat percentage, which, would allow you in theory to eat more, way less, and perform better. So that's kind of the draw. There was a study done with rats that the reason that it's not like out there for people to get from their doctor or used in the medical field is because there's a study on rats. They were given endurobol or cardarine for, I think it came out to basically like 2/3 of their life. I don't know how many days that was, but it ended up being 2/3 of their life. They were given cardarine in pretty heavy doses once a day, and they ended up all getting cancer. So that's kind of why you would hear like bad things about cardarine, which is a very good reason to stay away from them. And also another reason to kind of stay away from them is they're not like, not measured, but they're not really manufactured by anyone that is reputable, as far as like a major supplement company. And they're very, very new. Actually, if just from like all the research that I've done for this podcast, if you were to go on and try to find information about SARMs, via YouTube or, like someone's blog or, whatever, most people will tell you stay away from SARMs if you're looking to go that avenue and just take something else, because we don't really know about SARMs, and we know about all the like, Trenibol and Dianabol and Anavar and Winstrol. We know about those. We know what they do, but SARMs we don't really know. So like even the guys giving advice on what PEDs to use are saying stay away from SARMs. So probably a good idea to stay away from them.
It just sucks because like at the same time, like if there was some sort of agency that was allowed to study this stuff in some way, shape, or form, like more studies on it, we'd have a much better idea of what this stuff would do for people. And honestly, start using it as, performance benefits aside, but you could probably start using it as like a health benefit, like for drastically ill people. I mean, you could honestly probably, now again, I'm not a doctor, so take this with a grain of salt, but like, you could probably use SARMs in some way, shape, or form to at least put a band-aid on some of the obesity effects, or some of the side effects of obesity, by giving the individual a SARM, letting them come down in weight. Obviously, the lifestyle factors haven't changed, so probably yo-yo back up.
Yeah.
You know, if it's safe to give them every 3 years or something like that, obviously not the healthiest, but allow them to yo-yo. Maybe you extend their life a little bit longer. Maybe you know, take them out of the medical system for an extended period of time. That has to save money in some way, shape, or form for individuals. So it'd be interesting if they would at least do, you know, clinical research on this stuff, or a little bit more clinical research where we could see potentially some of the health benefits of it.
For sure.
Jose was talking about, you know, he feels 25 years old. And like honestly, like stem cells are freaking, those are legit.
Future. No doubt.
They're illegal for sport, but like for health purposes.
Oh, are they really?
Well, so technically gene editing, this is one thing that I found, is illegal for sport. And it's tough to say. I don't know exactly if stem cell is technically gene editing, but you are pretty much reorganizing your tissues and the DNA of those tissues to a younger version of yourself, pretty much. So I don't know if that would I think that's probably like a sticky, or like a topic for debate, if that makes sense.
I think I've heard of UFC fighters getting them. So
like injected into tissue specifically for like healing purposes.
Right. So what were you talking? Is there another way to do it?
Well, okay, so there's like, this comes from a Joe Rogan podcast. You can do intravenous stem cell, which will go pretty much wherever the body needs it to go. Joe Rogan did a podcast with Mel Gibson, who brought his dad down to a doctor in Panama who's doing this because it's illegal in the US. And his dad was basically, he was 96 years old on his deathbed. Entire body was shutting down. Was given an IV of stem cells, and like immediate turnaround. He came on the podcast, was like, I feel younger than I did at 91. I believe he is still alive. I'd have to Google that, but this was 4 years ago, and he was, you know, kicking it on a podcast at that point in time. So
for sure. That's nuts. That's man, if that's that's my grand scheme of things. Once I get to the point where my body is just messed up, and I don't think I can compete any longer, I'm just gonna go to Panama and I'll be good as new.
I mean, it's expensive, but I know that's the thing. So it's like, you know, like we talk about like athlete health and stuff like that, and like mental health, you know, kind of comes with that component, and like ending or being injured is a huge detriment to athletes' like mental psyche. And if we're you know, figuring out a way to safely prescribe them drugs where it's not a performance enhancing benefit, but a healing aspect to the individual, and gets them out on the field faster, in a healthy way, like, you know,
why wouldn't you do that?
I mean, that would be another area to explore.
Exactly.
Side of things, you know.
Exactly.
I almost think that if there was like a 2-month block where they were like, hey, you can take drugs from this in this time period, but we're going to test everybody. Obviously, this is like in a perfect world, but everybody at this date, if you guys test positive over our thresholds for anything, it's like a you know, lifetime ban on the sport. So at least then people are able to allow their body to heal.
Right.
like a 2-week block, because like CrossFit's stressful on the body.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you give them a 2-month block where they can take some of these things to heal, instead of like, and not have the stress of like, oh, am I going to get caught? Am I not going to get caught?
Yeah.
And it'll just prolong their career and like allow people to, compete and do what they love for a longer period of time. Obviously everything has to come to an end someday, but yeah, I think like it would be cool to see that from a athlete standpoint, and just allowing them to, can do what their passion is for a longer period of time,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is probably that's probably the most understandable reason that I would have for someone. If they were like, look, I was getting older, I wanted to continue to do my sport, and I needed something to help me do that. Like I totally get it.
Yeah.
I totally, doesn't make it right, but I totally get it.
There's a guy in 2017, I think he was like 35, qualified for the games, and he popped for something and he's like, yeah, I just wanted to give it,
Yeah.
I think he said that he was like, him and his wife were trying to get pregnant or something. So
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
Yep. But
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like,
yeah.
You're starting to see some of these like these athletes compete into their 40s now, and like that could, CrossFitters maybe start competing into their mid 30s,
Yeah. Yep.
If they were able to maybe, have the money that some of these other individuals have. And then from a developmental standpoint too, like if you were telling people that, hey, you can compete all the way to 35, now they're not trying to rush at 21, 22, 23 to get games. So you can have a slower build process for these individuals and keep them healthier longer, and not necessarily crash them trying to get them a crazy amount of volume and intensity, like to get them to the top, so that they can get some notoriety and potentially, compete longer in the sport. Like, so,
yeah. I mean, if there was a way that you could use them for positive, which I think you can use some of them for positive in the right way to make athletes be able to do what they love for a longer period of time and stay healthy. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Like a lot of the steroids have very like powerful healing properties that will make recovery and just injury, being able to heal.
Not necessarily like a performance enhancing benefit, but like back when Rich Froning was competing, the big thing was like, well, steroids don't make you better, they just allow you to work more, and the more work gets you better, is kind of like the thought process along what steroids were back then, or performance enhancing drugs were back then. But like, if you allow people to take stuff that will heal the body, in the off season, or if they had an injury, like giving them a certain period of time that allowed you to recover with them, it would make a world of difference.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And by no means are we advocating PED use, but like in a perfect world, like in a perfect world, it would be nice. Like if it was like one of those things where if we could figure it out and it gave people better quality of life, like how Jose Canseco is saying, like that sounds awesome. Like if they could figure out how to make enduroball safe, I mean, being able to burn solely fat when you're trying to lose weight would be awesome. That would be incredible. But if it came with all the negative stuff, then obviously you don't want that. But like if you could figure out how to, make it healthy, I mean, that would be crazy. Which it is very interesting that like we have, and I think the draw to PEDs is because it makes you, I mean, superhuman. Like it makes you be able to do things that you didn't think you were capable of.
And your rate of progress, like everyone, when you first start CrossFit or start a new sport, like your rate of progress is like absurd.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people like that feeling. So you can find that again by taking whatever, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say if in the last, if you had a chart of like, I mean, they probably don't have this much data on it, but if you had a chart of increasing social media use and increasing anabolic steroid use, I bet you it would be very positive correlation. Just because it's like we're in a day and age of like so much like just like your image. So like if you can portray something on social media and people don't actually know what you're doing.
Yeah. There's so many people out there that look fit and like they would be good at the sport specifically, and like not even like remotely close to being competitive at a high level in the sport. Now I'm not saying all those people are on drugs. But it does show that image does, and they have, you know, to go along with that, they do have like, you know, tens of thousands of Instagram followers, and you can make a living doing that on Instagram, you know? So it's interesting world that we live in.
I would like to see that data though. That would be
I wonder too, how
super interesting.
I wonder too how much of it is like the ease of access to information as well.
Yeah, for sure.
With like the rise in internet and social media and stuff like that.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. Like you can Google how to buy SARM and it pops up.
Hopefully that gives you guys a little bit more insight into some PEDs and kind of, I don't know if we really chatted about what, I guess we kind of did chat about what they do, but kind of some ins and outs behind them and how to, you know, avoid taking supplements that are tainted or avoiding supplements that might be questionable. Education factor a little bit. Do you have anything else to add in, or?
Just like a couple, just like things not keep in mind, but like interesting that I found. Number one country in the Olympics to pop for PEDs was Russia.
I was gonna guess.
Was Russia with 132 positives. Number two had 27.
Was number two China?
No, Belarus. Yeah. And then Ukraine, Turkey, United States. And then the number one PED used in the Olympics is turinabol, followed by stanozolol. The other ones are like biological passport abnormalities, which would include, that's how they know that you're on EPO, or blood doping. And that's another reason why the Olympics is more stringent, because they'll take what your body looks like in levels at a certain point, and then they'll take it at the Olympics or some part of the season. And then if there's abnormalities to a certain threshold, they will send those results to a board. And then that board, which is USADA, will make a decision on whether it's enough to test positive for biological passport abnormalities. But just a couple interesting things that I found that were kind of stood out. No surprise with Russia, but I had no idea that it was, 132 to second place in 27. That's crazy. That's crazy.
If you guys want some more insight into like how Russia does their doping, I guess state-sponsored doping is what you would call it. Icarus, a great movie to watch. Documentary of the individual who was literally running the state-sponsored doping in Russia, and how he fled to America, basically. So that's a pretty good one. If Max Aida had a podcast out about how corrupt the weightlifting IOC was. I think that's who it was. But he basically was taking bribes from individuals to just kind of brush their tests under the table. And that was weightlifting for like the last, I think, 2 decades or something like that. So, but yeah, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows in the competitive performance realm of things. So that was, I used to subscribe to the fact that CrossFitters were never on stuff, and then actually wised up to that. So it's a fortunate thing, but
I mean, just the thing you can do with it is information as you want. Number 1, sport, athlete, or track and field. Number 2, weightlifting, speed, endurance, strength.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind.
So, but yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully this kind of shed some light on some things. Again, we aren't advocating for anybody to be taking any of these drugs. We're also not doctors, so I think that's probably a disclaimer that we have to throw in here somewhere. So, take what we're saying with a grain of salt. This is kind of all stuff we've learned off of listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, Googling things. So, the information is out there if you guys want to explore it more. Come up with kind of your own kind of thought process along the lines of PEDs and how to use them, how to not use them, what they do, whatever, So, if you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or some other broadcasting, make sure you give us a listen or a follow on Instagram, blacklisted.hq. If you guys are on YouTube, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. As well, if you guys are listening on one of the streaming devices, please head over to our YouTube and hit subscribe to our channel. We're putting out some other content on there. And always, if you guys are looking for coaches or looking for sports performance help, we would love to be able to help out with that. You guys can head over to our website, blacklistedhq.com. Fill out a request more information on that web or on our website. And we'll get on a phone call with you and chat some more. So thanks for coming on, Logan.
Yeah, man. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. We will catch you guys next time.